What up? Welcome back. It is Bones, and in this one, we are going to do the fourth annual Top 20 DC Multiverse of the Year. Now, I know a lot of people are doing their Top 10 DC Multiverse, Top 10, figure of the year, which encompasses other lines. But as you can see here, we are a DC centered channel, so we only do DC here for the most part. But if you want to know the best must have figures from DC Multiverse throughout the year, then you have come to the right spot. Now, doing a top 20 is pretty long, so I want to get into this, get through each one, talk about it a little bit, and finally see our number one choice that you must have in your DC collection for 2024. Now, don't be surprised if you don't see certain figures because I'm still going to do a top 10 live action and a top 10 build a figure and mega fig list. I'll try to get those out right away. That way it's not too much of a waiting time between each video. So there's a couple of other top lists that I will be doing. So without further ado, let's get it started. Now, I do want to do some honorable mentions, and these are going to be pretty interesting because they're not only an honorable mention, but they're also kind of letdowns for me for the year. Number one's going to be Mr. Terrific. Now, I didn't review this one on the channel. I do have the platinum and the standard version, but I just really couldn't get past that soft goods coat. I mean, I really don't like that. It's not appealing to me, looks very bad. Although for the most part, it could be a great figure and it's a must have for your DC collection. The main reason I didn't put him on the list is because I am going to review him still, and I'm going to do a custom jacket on him. So once I do the custom jacket and do the review, then I may enjoy him more. But that is a big enough reason to not put him on the list. And you'll see pretty much a pattern with these honorable mentions because they have the same thing going on. Number 2 is going to be Superboy from the Titans. And once again, I had to redo this figure completely. We did see the standard figure, and it just was not what I expected, not what I imagine when I think of Superboy Connor Kent in the t-shirt and jeans getup. Now, once again, I customized my own version, and I was really happy with that one. Way more fun, way more photogenic, but I had to put in the work and really change him a lot. I mean, this wasn't just a swapping out of hands or a simple little paint touch up. I really had to put a lot of work into this one. So it's an honorable mention. It was a big disappointment for me upon release. So that's why he is not going to be in the top 20. And finally, Cyborg. Another one that, I'll be honest with you, if you're just a regular figure collector, you're not really too interested in all the little details and stuff like that, this is a perfectly good Cyborg figure. But if you're like me and there's a certain image of what you want when you're thinking that McFarlane is going to release a figure, this Cyborg just did not do it for me. Now, once again, I went ahead and put in the work, did some touch-ups, added some details, made my own custom attachment for his arm cannon, and then I was really happy with it. But once again, he's not on the list because the way McFarlane released it wasn't up to my standards. And although, as I said, he can nicely fill out your Justice League, there's not a problem. a major problem with the standard release. I just felt like it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I was looking forward to. And although the custom does kind of tone that down a little bit, and now he looks really awesome in a in a Justice League lineup, that's a reason why he did not make the top 20. So those are the honorable mentions. There was three of them. Let's go ahead and get into the top 20. Now we're going to start off at number 20 with something that really is a deep cut in the DC universe, and that is the Clock King. Now, the great things about this figure are never seen before, beautiful colors that pop, very kooky and fun villain that you can add to your DC Rogues gallery. He came with some pretty nice clock arms for accessories, which you don't see every day, and a really nice wired cape that really adds to the fun factor in this figure. Now, there is a platinum of this one that you can hunt down if that's more your cup of tea. But if you get the standard collector's edition release, it is a very interesting out there addition to your DC Multiverse. So that's number 20, the Clock King. Now, coming in at number 19 is the Robot Manhunters. Now, this one made the list because one of the positives is that it is a true army builder. Now, that does bring in one of the negatives because it is a harder to come by figure than your standard regular release. But me, that when I army build, my kind of rule is that I need at least three to be, an army builder, and I do that. Now I can expand upon that and go up to five, eight, 10. But my regular rule for army builders is to have at least the rest. Now, aside from that, this is a very unassuming figure of how good he is. One of the first figures I saw that started using that faceplate technology, and really under the radar reuse of body parts and some beautiful metallic paint. And one of the best things about this figure, the Manhunters, besides what you get with the full release, is something that surprised even me, and that was that once you get them in hand and move them around, start posing them, and you really get a lot of fun out of it. Very photogenic figure, and once you army build it, it just heightens that up to 11. Now, there is a couple of little things you can do. Like, I think on one of mine, I raised up the head a little bit by extending the neck peg, which gives them a little bit more of an intimidating look, plus adds to the range and articulation of the head. But all in all, great release, the Robot Manhunters at number 19. Now, coming in at number 18, kind of a sleeper figure for me because although it is a character that I really enjoy and I really resonate with, upon seeing the images, I was not a big fan. Thought it was going to be a big letdown. And in the end, it has become one of my favorite figures, and that is Simon Baz. He is part of the Green Lantern Corps, and a Green Lantern that definitely, has his own style, lives his life by his own code. Now, one of the main negatives I thought when I saw the promo images of this figure was the clean design of the costume. No scope work, no added texture, basically reusing an old body book. But I have to say, once I got him in hand, the colors, the faceplate technology really picked him up and gave him just a better fun factor than I thought he would have. Now, of course, I went in and added some details, like an added ring energy effect. Of course, his holster and gun, which is something that, although McFarlane has gone into a little bit more recently, it's still something that they kind of shy away from, especially because in the comics, the character doesn't really rely on his sidearm anymore, but it's a detail that a comic and a true character purist would really like to see him with. So in the end, once I, did my little touch-ups, put in a little bit of work. This wasn't as much as, the other figures I talked about. This was just a little bit of custom additions and stuff like that. It is a really great figure to have in hand and to add to your Green Lantern core. So that is number 18, Simon Baz. Coming in at number 17, we do have the classic Penguin. Now, a lot of these figures do have platinums that if I don't mention, it's probably because it wasn't that important. But this one does have a superpowers platinum if that's something you're interested in. But as a regular release, it is an awesome release. Alternate hands, umbrella. Now, once again, I did add my own little touch with this guy, and that was the cigarette holder and cigarette. But that is something that you're never really going to see in a, mass toy aisle from any line. So I can't really hold that against McFarlane or even this figure. Great release, very unassuming, very sly use of reuse, which it has some reuse from another penguin, but it's hard to really notice it unless you know it's there. Now, the reason he's so low on the list, and that is because there are some slight details like the pinstripes that are a negative. I mean, not a dream killer, or, it's not going to make me not want the figure, but it was something that could have been added quite easily. And the reason he is in the top 20 is because this is a must have rogue for your Batman, for your Batman Rogues Gallery. You must have a classic Penguin. And that's something that I always notice about McFarlane is that the way he holds on to some classic figures where eventually we know they're going to be released. Of course, this year we're going to get a classic Two-Face. That kind of keeps interest in the line to where people are always wondering what will be up next, what we have to look forward to. Instead of releasing everything in year one and then people just really not caring anymore about the line, this is a smart use of classic characters. So that is number 17, the classic Penguin. Now, here's one that probably nobody else is going to have in their top list, and it's going to be our number 16, Red Tornado. Now, I did look up all of these figures' release dates, so I do know he was released in January of 2024, so officially he is still from this year. Although it was so long ago that a lot of people have kind of, brushed him off and put him to the side of your hero lineup. But he is a pretty essential member of your expanded Justice League. Now, great release, alternate hands, great reuse where you can't really tell where the parts come from. Now, it is a certain version of Red Tornado. You could go a more mechanical, robotic look, while this is a more, humanoid, cyborg styled Red Tornado. Great in hand, a lot of fun to pose and add to your lineups. The one thing that kind of kept them lower on the list was that wasn't a big fan of the color choices, but of course that could leave it open to McFarlane always releasing a different version with a little bit more of the classic yellow and bright red instead of the darker colors they went for on this time around. But still a great figure to add to your DC collection, and that is our number 16, Red Tornado. Now, coming in at number 15, our first female of the list, and that is the Huntress. Now, once again, they do have a platinum version of her. I only opened up the standard, although I do own the platinum. I thought the standard was good enough to add to your shelf. Once again, using the great things that McFarlane has brought into this line that people really don't give McFarlane a lot of credit for, which is wired cloth capes, which definitely add to the fun and the posability and the display of all the figures that they're used on, and the faceplate technology that is becoming more and more prevalent in the newer figures released by McFarlane. And while at first even I was kind of skeptical of the wired capes, wasn't a big fan of the faceplates either, But now that I have seen a couple of figures, had them in hand, these are definitely upgrades that really add to your fun and experience of adding these DC characters to your collection. So, really looking good. Great release from McFarlane. She had her signature crossbow, faceplates, alternate hands, an all around good release. From McFarlane, that is number 15, The Huntress. Now, coming in at number 14, we have the first appearance Batman, one of the first figures to really use that wired cloth cape. Once again, a great release from McFarlane, multiple hands, a wrench. I think that's, this characterization of Batman being more of a murderizer who really liked to be brutal and be deadly to a lot of street thugs, which is a reason why they really feared him out there in the hood. Now, it does have limitations and it does have negative parts, one of them being the way they use that plug neck head that I'm not a fan of still. But once you get the figure in hand, get the wired cape posing, use the alternate hands, it really brings the figure together and is a great looking figure on your shelf. Not going to be perfect, never is, but very fun and strikes a big presence displayed on your shelf. Now, also has a platinum that you can find if that's more to your liking. I did do a little bit of customizing on one of mine, added some alternate hands, customized, added a pistol, dropped down the head so that you wouldn't really see the gap in the front of the neck. Now, the hands that I added a lot of character and style to this figure, really making them fun to pose and have on your shelf. But that's number 14, first appearance, Batman. Coming in at number 13, we have Starfire, another collector's edition figure, also with a platinum. But this time I think the standard release is the more sought after figure. Now, beautiful figure, really enjoyed her. She looks really good. Great addition to the females on your DC shelf. There are some negative things that, kind of kept her lower than I wanted to put her, but no alternate hands once again. I didn't know this, but a lot of you told me, and that was that Starfire is actually pretty tall. She's, I think six something. So they made her not really as tall as she should be, which is something that people will not notice, especially if you're just a standard nonchalant collector. You're just going to say, oh, that is a really fine looking Starfire figure. You're not going to notice the height discrepancy or anything like that. Now, I did add a little bit of touches to mine, which was adjust her head a little bit so that she could move a little more. That big mane of hair, really cumbersome. And also, I added some alternate hands to give her a little bit more style and attitude. But once again, great figure to add to your DC collection. That is number 13, Starfire. Now at number 12, I have the classic Adam Ray Palmer. This one was one from the Digital Waves from McFarlane. Now, once again, great release, great figure, alternate hands, miniature size version of himself. Digital code, but really, who cares about that? But all in all, a really needed figure for your silver classic Justice League lineup. Great figure. The head sculpt is pretty nice. One of the only negatives I would say was that they didn't give him an alternate left fist and the pretty Nimrod decision to paint the belt on him instead of adding, a sculpted belt or a belt with just a buckle with the Atom symbol on it. That would have really made this figure, a 9 out of 10 instead of a 7, 8 out of 10 that he is. You do need him for your collection. Great release. It's just those little details that kept them lower on the top 20. But that is our number 12, the classic Adam. Now at number 11, we have a non-Batman Batman, which is Jean-Paul Vallée as Azrael Batman from Nightfall. Now, this isn't Bruce Wayne. This is an understudy from the Dumas and all that backstory. But if you were a thug and you saw this guy in the streets, you would pretty much crap your pants. Now, McFarlane did a decent job of releasing this figure. Great looking colors, great that he went in and did a new head sculpt and details to the armor. But the one negative I would say is that the wings are not articulated. You just plug them in and they pretty much stay straight. Now you can move them around and position them in different positions, but I really would have liked some kind of hinge on each one, which would have given it a lot more posability and fun factor. Now, once again, they did give us both colors, the red and the blue. The blue being a platinum version that was really hard to get a hold of, and that really brought him down on the list. But it really was a needed character to add to your Nightfall lineup. So that is number 11, both versions of the Azrael Batman from Nightfall. We have hit the halfway mark here, and this is going to be our number 10, the Bane from the Nightfall 2-pack. A very interesting one because it is one of the only reissued figures or redo figures. Although for me, there was enough changes to make it, a new release. Great figure. I love me some Bane. Bought 4 of these. And while the original standard release definitely is an acquired taste because of the cell shading that they added to it and maybe even the massive proportions that he has, for me, it was an awesome Nightfall release. Now, of course, I went in and did a whole repaint to make them all black, changed up all of the paint, raised up his head a little bit to give him more movement and articulation and range. But either ways, even if you have the standard, this is just a figure that commands respect on your shelf. Now, for me, it was a great release. We finally got the alternate fist for Bane, which you could even use on the first release with the harness and the tank, which was, I think, trying to be like a rebirth Bane. But you also get a battle damaged Batman with alternate hands, wired cape, extended backbreaking posability. And in all honesty, that is like accessories to this Bane. I don't really even consider that a singular figure. That Batman is basically packed in with this Bane just so he could break his spinal cord, which can always be tons of fun. So that is our number 10, the Bane from the Nightfall 2-pack. Coming in at number 9, we have another army builder, and that is going to be the collector's edition of the Green Lantern Corps. Now, great variety with these figures. Awesome army builder. I know people that have bought, 10, 15. I'm still right now stuck at 5, but I may buy more in the future. And after all that, even some great accessories, Green Lantern effects, alternate hands. They just really went out of their way to make this a great release. Now, I do have my own certain ways that I want to display these and have them finished on my shelf. I went ahead and swapped out the Abin Sur and that Wolf Green Lantern. I'm not sure what his name is, but they never really show that guy with the costume that he had in the platinum edition of this figure. So I put him the standard suit that comes with the standard release. Then I went ahead and put Abin Sur in the sleeveless lanterns getup, which is more reminiscent of him and Hal Jordan's first meeting. So that doesn't mean anything because you can interswap heads, you could build your own Green Lanterns. There's just endless possibility with this release. That is why he broke into the top 10. That is number 9, the Green Lantern Corps Army Building Collector's Edition release. Now, coming in at number 8, one that I didn't review on the channel, but I have had a good amount of fun with, and that is the Question. Now, the Question I put up this high, reason being he is a must have for your DC collection. A big fan favorite for a long time, going back to the animated series and even in the storylines of the comics. The Question has always played a prominent role. Now, he does have his negatives, one being the reuse, no alternate hands. But one thing I will say is that that's one thing that I like about McFarlane's line, and that is that even the comic figures tend to have enough detail and texture and realism to be able to mix and match with his live action figures, which makes it a nice, not so prominent reuse where you could use shoes and parts from a live action figure and port them onto a comic figure. But since McFarlane's DC line has a little hint of realism in there most of the time, it kind of blends in and works. Now, once again, I added my own touches to this guy, raised up his head a little bit to give him more range, and it really makes him look a lot more proportioned. And I added him a little pea shooter pistol. Not sure where this one came from, but the way it's shaped and like it's kind of noir style really works with this Question figure. So that is our number 8, the Question. Now, getting into one of my personal favorites, that is going to be number 7, Commander Steel. Now, at first glance, you might be like, hey, this guy's, going on clearance right now. A lot of people already have him. He's like, a almost D-list character. But here's the thing. This is my list. A lot of people are going to have different figures, different characters that they enjoy. I had a lot of fun with this Commander Steel. I bought 3 of them, one to keep in box in my mint in box collection, one that I keep in the standard release form because he is one of my favorite releases, and one that I added articulation, added hands, added accessories, which in this case was a harness for his shotgun and a pump action shotgun. Now, this really gives him a lot of attitude, and it does kind of play into the comics. If you look back into the older comics, he did use, firearms sometimes. Now, one thing I really like that a lot of people, look over, and that is the whited out eyes. I'm just a big fan of that inhuman, otherworldly look that characters have when they have whited out eyes. So, one of my personal favorites, number 7, Commander Steel. Now, just because these are some of my favorites, that doesn't mean that they're not great additions to your DC Multiverse shelf or DC Multiverse collection. Next one up being a prime example, and that is our number 6, Geo Force. Now, people haven't really made a big deal about this one, but I really liked this release. This is where I really saw the advantage that having the faceplates adds to each figure that has them. Multiple looks, multiple attitudes, tons of possibility in figure photography and display. Love the whited out eyes once again. And this was just a great figure that I really enjoyed. Tons of fun in hand. Now, one negative I would say is they didn't give him any alternate hands, but they gave him enough accessories to make it a worthwhile release. Now, once again, I added my own alternate hands, used one of the faceplates to go ahead and add some retro side-eye, which I am a big fan of and I really miss. I really wish McFarlane would go back to the side-eye. Now that we have faceplates where you can have 3 alternate looks, now is the time to implement that side-eye, something that really gives a character a look that you cannot match with those straight looking zombie eyes that people seem to prefer. And while I like both, I like straight eyes, I like side eye, I like whited out eyes. The faceplates are an advancement that really allows you to play with and add all of those emotions. So now he also has a platinum that I also own, but I'm more particular to the standard release. Once again, one of my personal favorites, but great figure, great release, great to add to your collection. That is number 6, Geo Force. Coming in at number 5, we have a must have for our Bat family, and that is Damian Wayne. Now, although we've seen a couple of releases from McFarlane representing different looks of Damian Wayne, this was what I always imagined in my mind when I think of that little jerk, Damian Wayne. Great release, a page puncher release, which is kind of out there, but that doesn't take away of the style and look that this Damian Wayne has. Now, once again, no alternate hands, minimal accessories, although we did get that pretty cool Professor Pig mask, which added to the fun factor. Wasn't hard to get some alternate hands, especially if you own the Dick Grayson Classic Robin release, which had tons of alternate hands that fit on this Damian Wayne. But the biggest thing that sold me, besides the look and the scale, everything matched up great, was the cloth hood and cape. Great execution. One of the first times where you could switch from unhooded to hooded, just like that. And it looks good. It doesn't look too bulky, doesn't look, too gaudy. Just looks nice and clean and sleek and fits perfectly with Damian Wayne. So that is our number 5. In the top 20, Damian Wayne. Now it's getting getting pretty spicy. We're at number 4. And I have to be really honest with you guys. For a long time, I thought that this Aquaman from the Task Force wave was going to be my number 4 pick. But recently, reviewing The Flash from the Task Force wave, it really changed my mind. Reason being that this was a great Flash figure, everything I want in my Justice League Flash. He even has like a gritty look, like a little bit of a more edgier look compared to the classic Barry Allen from Flashpoint. This one gives off more of those Wally West vibes. Now, aside from the pixel shading that, in all honesty, this one, it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, just the logo is probably the biggest part. But for head sculpt, the 2 fists that they gave us, the costume design, this is a perfect Flash for your Justice League. More like a 90s feel to him, which is, fine. And of course, the whited out eyes. So, been having a lot of fun with him. He's great to pose, great to take pictures with. And as I said before, what really puts him up here high on the list is he is your quintessential Flash for any number of your Justice League lineups. So that is number 4. Big surprise, the Task Force version of the Flash. Now we're into the final stretch, the top 3 figures from DC Multiverse for this year. You know how I do this list? I pretty much write down all my favorite figures. I check their release dates. I make notes about the pros and cons about them. I go back and remember which ones I really loved having in hand, which ones I posed the most and had a lot of fun with, which ones I customized and made better. So all of that went into making this list. And in the end, when I finally get all my, top 20 down, I start picking them off and wondering, if I had to get rid of all of these, which would be the ones that I just had to hold on to. Really, some of the more must have versions of characters, the way they executed them, they must be in your collection. And in the end, I have my top 3. So without further ado, my top three. Number three is Silver Age Batman. Now, this was a 9 release for me. Alternate hands, wired cape, great design, great colors. They even gave us Ace the Bat Hound. And I think the only point I took off of him was that Ace the Bat Hound had no articulation. So he was almost a 10 out of 10 release, and that is very rare. I don't usually get those. So he is a must have in your displays. When you put him up with that classic Robin, he looks great. When you put him up with that classic Silver Age Justice League, he fits right in. And he is a great Batman to have in your collection. Now we know there's still people out there. I heard recently some buffoons running their mouth about, oh, McFarlane makes 1,000 Batman.
Oh, really?
If you look at my list, there was only really 2 Batmans out of 20 figures. So we've gone way past that. It is a known thing that Batman sells far better than a lot of characters. That is just to keep the line going. It's, a necessary evil, a double-edged sword. You want to keep your line going, you have to keep releasing Batman. Now, the benefit is right now we're getting tons of obscure characters. We're filling out a lot of our teams and lines. A bunch of stuff coming up next down the pipe.
Because you freaking fricks just can't ever be quenched. Your fantasies can't ever be quenched, can they?
So there's no complaining to do. If Batman's not for you, then go ahead and move on. No one's going to care. Everybody's still going to buy it. Some of the most valuable figures right now from McFarlane's DC Multiverse are Batman figures. So it doesn't hurt me at all that we have another Batman in the list. Great release, great addition to your collection, and that is the Silver Age Batman. Bringing it in at number three. Now, number two is really the same thing. It is a classic version of a character, a must have release in your collection. That is going to be number two, Hal Jordan, the Silver Age. Once again, showing you that the classic Silver Age is always going to be money, great release, alternate hands, did come from a digital wave. You got some energy effects with him, classic design of the suit, really going back to that almost first appearance, Hal Jordan, when he met Abin Zur. Now, personally, I have bought 4 of these Hal Jordans. I still have one in box. I still have one standard up behind me on the shelf. I have one that I have trimmed the trunks to make it look a little bit more sleeker. And I have one that I took off the head to add to that Green Lantern Corps body. Now, it is the old costume with the black sleeves, but I did paint the neck, and it really cuts an awesome looking Hal Jordan in your collection. So this is a figure that I really used, really fun to pose. If you're a DC fan at all, you have to have a classic Hal Jordan, and this one definitely fits the bill. So that's our runner-up for this year. Number two, gotta have him, the Silver Age classic Hal Jordan. And now our number one, and we're gonna go, right back to the other side of the spectrum. A big debate that has been happening with McFarlane since the beginning, and that is going to be original sculpts, original designs against classic reuse bodies, like the same body over and over again, just with, different paint apps and different little accessories. The good thing is that we can all decide of what we prefer. You could have your classics, you could have your new age stuff, You could have things we've never seen before, things that we never imagined would be made. And that kind of takes me into my number one. My number one for this year, you really must have him. If you don't have him, pick him up, check him out, and see that he is a beautiful, great figure. And that is going to be Cyborg Superman from the new 52. Now, for a long time, this was a rumored release by McFarlane. A lot of people thought that it wasn't really real, that it was a legend, that it was, never going to be released. And this year it was released. Now, once again, he has a platinum version that is really hard to get. A lot more silver highlighted detail in that one. But if you get the standard release, it is just as good. And what really makes this figure representative of the DC line is that so much added sculpt, so much added detail. Even got some wash on this one. No accessories, plastic cape, which really kind of works with this one because it's tattered. When you try and damage and tatter up cloth capes, it just doesn't work a lot of the times. It looks really bad. So I really prefer a plastic cape to be kind of worn and dingy and ripped up. It just works a lot cleaner and better. But one thing this figure does have that is great posability, fun factor in the hand. When you pick this guy up, you could move him around and pose him in different ways, and it is really hard to put him down. Now, although some people might think this is ugly, to me, this is perfection. This is beautiful. Now, while I really would have loved an alternate arm to give him a regular look, that kind of asymmetry, like lopsided look a little bit, really gives them a feel as something, that you don't see every day that's kind of abnormal, which you really have to respect and adore. Look at that head sculpt, really kind of gory and creepy looking, and that's something that I really enjoy. Now, it's not going to be for everybody. Of course, some people want their Reign of Superman's classic cyborg Superman, but that has been shown to be coming. That is going to be released by McFarlane. But if you really know, you know, and you know that this figure is a thing of beauty. This is something, if you have it on your shelf, on your desk at work, people will stop and say, whoa, that is crazy. That is awesome looking. And it is a definitive addition to your DC Multiverse collection. So, anyways, guys, once again, before we go, everybody's list is going to be different. This is my list. There's a lot of figures that we could talk about that we will talk about probably in the upcoming list that I'm going to do. But this is my top 20 essential DC multiverses of 2024. So, anyways, you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.